God says you prayed for a breakthrough, and heaven has answered. This is not a coincidence. This is not random. This is not just another video scrolling past your screen. This is a divine interruption. You asked for change. You cried out for movement. You whispered prayers when no one else was listening. And now heaven is responding. But you must listen carefully right now, because this message will not appear again. There are moments in life when eternity touches time, when the invisible realm leans into your ordinary routine and says, this is your moment. And this is one of those moments. You paid for relief. You prayed for clarity. You prayed for restoration. You prayed for that door to open. And now the answer has been released. But the timing is critical. There is a reason you feel a sense of urgency rising inside you as you hear this. The Spirit of God moves in appointed times. Scripture reveals that there are seasons and windows when blessings are unlocked, when instructions are given, and when obedience must be immediate. This is why the warning is so clear. Open this urgently before tonight, 11:55 p.m., or miss what was reserved only for you. A time is not random. It represents the edge of transition. It represents the final minutes before a shift. It represents the narrow space between delay and destiny. When heaven sets a timestamp on a message, it is not to create fear. It is to awaken focus. You must understand something powerful right now. Not every opportunity repeats itself. Not every divine whisper comes twice. There are moments when God speaks once and waits for response. There are blessings that are time-sensitive, assignments that are season-bound, and answers that require immediate alignment. If you ignore this, if you treat it casually, if you assume it will circle back later, you risk stepping outside the timing that was perfectly orchestrated for you. And timing is everything in the Spirit. You have been waiting for breakthrough. But what you did not realize is that breakthrough has been waiting for your attention. Heaven answered when you prayed, but the manifestation requires awareness. It requires sensitivity. It requires you to recognize that this message carries weight. Think about the nights you cried. Think about the moments you said, God, I cannot keep going like this. Think about the silent frustration you carried while smiling in front of others. Heaven heard all of it. Every tear was recorded. Every word was weighed. Every sigh was understood. And when heaven moves, it moves with precision. The urgency of 11:55 p.m. is prophetic. It signals that you are at the brink of something. Midnight represents change. It represents the crossing over. It represents a shift from one day into another. And 5 minutes before midnight is a warning. Prepare now. Decide now. Align now. Because once the clock moves forward, the window closes. This is not about superstition. This is about spiritual sensitivity. God often moves just before the turning of a season. He positions his people at the edge of transition and watches who will respond. There is something reserved only for you. Not for your neighbor. Not for your coworker. Not even for your closest friend. It has your name on it in the Spirit. It was assigned to your obedience, tied to your faith, connected to your perseverance. That is why the enemy has tried so hard to distract you lately. That is why confusion increased. That is why fatigue hit harder. Because when a breakthrough is near, resistance intensifies. When heaven answers, opposition tries to interfere. But the fact that you are hearing this right now means you have not missed it yet. Do not dismiss this as emotional language. Do not brush it aside as exaggeration. There are divine appointments in life, moments that define seasons. And this message carries the weight of appointment. You prayed for a breakthrough. Heaven has answered, But answers must be received. Doors must be walked through. Instructions must be followed. And timing must be honored. If something inside you feels stirred, that is confirmation. If your heart is beating a little faster, that is awareness awakening. If you feel both urgency and hope at the same time, that is the Spirit aligning you. This is not about pressure. It is about positioning. It is about recognizing that what was reserved for you is closer than you think. And what happens next depends on how you respond in this moment. You are standing at the edge of a shift. The clock is moving. The atmosphere is charged. Heaven has spoken. The question now is simple but powerful. Will you listen carefully right now? Because this message will not appear again. And what is reserved only for you is too valuable to ignore. There was a prayer you prayed that no one else heard. It wasn't polished. It wasn't religious. It wasn't filled with perfect words. It was raw. It was tired. It came from a place deep inside you where strength was running low and hope felt thin. That prayer moved heaven. When you said, "God, I cannot do this alone anymore," something shifted in the spirit. When you whispered, "Please make a way," angels were dispatched. When you cried without words, heaven translated every tear into a decree. You may have thought it was just another desperate moment, but in the courts of heaven, it was a turning point. You need to understand this clearly. Breakthrough does not begin when you see change. Breakthrough begins the moment heaven agrees with your cry. And heaven agreed with you. The answer was not delayed because you were ignored. It was being prepared because it required precision. Some answers must align people, places, and timing. Some miracles must rearrange circumstances you cannot even see. While you were worrying, God was working. While you were doubting, heaven was drafting the solution. While you were wondering if your prayer mattered, your name was being spoken in rooms you have never entered. Do you remember that night you almost gave up? The night you said, "Maybe this is just how my life will be." That with a moment the enemy hoped you would withdraw your faith. But instead, even in exhaustion, you prayed again. Even in frustration, you whispered God's name. That persistence carried weight. Heaven responds to persistence. Not performance. Persistence. You do not have to impress God. You move Him with sincerity. And your sincerity opened a door. There are signs already forming around you that your breakthrough is in motion. You may not have recognized them yet. Certain delays that frustrated you were actually protection. Certain people who walked away were clearing space. Certain closed doors were preventing distractions. And now, subtle shifts are happening. Conversations feel different. Opportunities are appearing unexpectedly. Ideas are coming to you at unusual times. A quiet confidence is starting to replace anxiety. These are not coincidences. These are signals. When heaven answers, it begins with movement in the unseen before manifestation in the visible. But here's the key. You must stay spiritually alert. When an answer is near, distractions increase. You may feel sudden discouragement. You may feel tempted to disengage. You may even question whether you are worthy of what you asked for. That is not your voice. That is resistance trying to weaken your expectation. The very fact that pressure increased is evidence that something valuable is approaching. The enemy does not fight what has no future. The resistance confirms the reward. Right now, I want you to lean in. If this message is resonating with your spirit, do not stay silent. Like this video as an act of agreement. Comment, "My breakthrough is here," as a declaration of faith. Share this with someone who has been praying in silence. And if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, subscribe now and become part of this prophetic community. When you engage, you are not just supporting a video. You are aligning yourself with a word that could shift your season. Your interaction is a seed of faith, and seeds always produce harvest. The prayer that moved heaven was not ignored, but was recorded. It was honored. It was answered. But answers require preparation. You cannot carry a breakthrough with the same mindset that carried the burden. God is stretching your capacity right now. He is strengthening your discernment. He is refining your focus. Because when what you asked for arrives, you must be ready to steward it. Blessings without preparation become burdens, but blessings with preparation become legacy. You may have thought your prayer was too small, too late, too messy, but heaven does not measure prayers by elegance. Heaven measures them by faith. And even if your faith felt fragile, it was real. Even if your voice trembled, it was heard. Even if you doubted afterward, the agreement had already been sealed. The breakthrough you prayed for is not a fantasy. It is not an illusion. It is an answer in motion. Right now, something is aligning behind the scenes. A decision is shifting. A door is unlocking. The delay is expiring. The atmosphere around your life is changing. You cannot afford to slip back into disbelief at this critical moment. The prayer that moved heaven is now moving circumstances. But you must position your heart to receive. Because what comes next will require your participation, your obedience, and your attention. Heaven has answered. The question now is, are you prepared to recognize the answer when it stands in front of you? There are moments in life when heaven opens a window, and what you do within that window determines what follows next. This is one of those moments. The Spirit is saying clearly, there is a spiritual window that is closing. Not to create fear, but to awaken urgency. Not to pressure you, but to position you. When God speaks about timing, it is because timing carries power. You are not just hearing a message, you are standing inside a prophetic opportunity. Why does 11:55 p.m. matter? Because it represents the final stretch before transition. In Scripture, midnight often symbolized sudden change. Chains fell at midnight. Deliverance came at midnight. Shifts happened when the clock struck the turning point. But 5 minutes before midnight is preparation time. It is decision time. It is alignment time. It is the sacred pause before the breakthrough manifests. 11:55 p.m. is not about numbers alone. It is about readiness. It is about whether you will move when prompted or hesitate when called. Prophetic windows do not stay open forever. There are divine invitations that require response within a season. Think about the times you felt strongly to act but delayed, and later realized the opportunity had passed. This is different. This carries weight. This is tied directly to the prayer you prayed. Heaven answered, but alignment must meet agreement. God releases. You respond. That partnership is what activates manifestation. Right now, distraction is your greatest threat. Notice how subtly your attention is being pulled in different directions. Notice how small things are trying to occupy your focus. The enemy understands timing. If he cannot stop your blessing, he will attempt to delay your response. He will try to make you busy, tired, or indifferent. He will whisper, "You can handle this later." But later is not promised for this specific window. Sensitivity is required now. When obedience meets divine timing, acceleration happens. What could have taken months can happen suddenly. What felt blocked can open effortlessly. But delayed obedience slows momentum. That is why this message feels urgent. It is not about anxiety, it is about synchronization. Heaven is moving, and you are being invited to move with it. There is something else you must understand. Spiritual windows often close quietly. There is no loud alarm, no dramatic announcement, just a subtle shift in atmosphere. One moment, grace is flowing in a specific direction. The next moment, the opportunity has transitioned. That is why discernment matters. You cannot rely only on logic in moments like this. You must rely on spiritual awareness. You may be asking, what exactly must I do? First, you must listen carefully. Clear your heart from doubt. Silence competing voices. Make space for instruction. The next step will become clear when your spirit is uncluttered. God does not shout over chaos. He speaks into stillness. These final moments before the shift require your focus. And here is something that may shock you. This window is connected to something generational. Your response does not affect only you. It affects those connected to you. Your obedience can unlock favor for your household. Your alignment can shift patterns that have existed for years. What seems like a personal breakthrough carries wider impact than you realize. Do not treat this lightly. Do not assume there will be another identical moment. This message will not appear again in the same way because divine timing does not duplicate itself. It moves forward, and you are being called forward with it. In a few moments, I will reveal something critical about what was reserved only for you, something most people overlook at the edge of breakthrough. Hold on. What comes next changes everything. Before we continue, seal this moment with faith. Type "I receive my timing" in the comments if this resonates with you. Blessing code 431 is now activated. Now, as this spiritual window stands open, I want to speak to those who feel the weight of this word deeply in their spirit. When you sow into fertile ground, you become part of the harvest it produces. This channel is not just content. It is a vessel carrying urgent messages that awaken souls before their midnight hour. Scripture declares, "Give, and it shall be given unto you." And this is not distant history. This is God speaking directly into your now. When you respond through super thanks, membership, or a PayPal seed from the link in the description or the QR code on your screen, you are not funding a platform. You are fueling the spread of divine timing into lives hanging by a thread. I feel led to say this plainly. I am inviting you to become a carrier of this breakthrough message. Your seed becomes oil in the lamp, ensuring the light does not go out before someone else reaches their 11:55 p.m. moment. Act on this prompting quickly, because obedience in this hour carries multiplied grace. As you give, may heaven open windows over your life that no one can shut, and may your generosity return to you as accelerated favor. Step into this prophetic act now. There is something reserved only for you. Not borrowed, not shared, not reassigned, reserved. That word carries weight in the spirit. When something is reserved, it means it has been set aside with intention. It means your name is attached to it. It means heaven marked it before you ever saw it. And what God is revealing right now is that the breakthrough you prayed for is not generic. It is personal. It has your fingerprint on it. It fits your calling. It answers your specific cry. You have spent seasons watching others receive what you hoped for. You celebrated them, but deep inside you wondered, when will it be my turn? You questioned whether your delay meant denial. You wrestled with silent comparisons. But what you did not see was that your portion was being prepared differently. Some blessings are distributed publicly. Others are handcrafted privately. Yours required precision. Yours required timing. Yours required protection from interference. What was reserved for you cannot be claimed by someone else, even if they try, even if they compete, even if they misunderstand your journey. Divine reservation means divine security. If God assigned it to you, no one can legally take it in the spirit. But here is the key. You must show up to receive what is reserved. A reservation unclaimed eventually expires, and this is why the urgency still echoes. Heaven prepared it, but you must align with it. This reserved breakthrough is connected to restoration. There are years you feel were wasted, opportunities you believe slipped away, time you wish you could reclaim. God is not limited by lost time. He restores years. He compresses seasons. He accelerates outcomes. What looks delayed in the natural can be subtly recovered in the supernatural. And what is reserved for you carries restoration within it. It is not just progress. It is repayment. It is not just movement. It is redemption. Some of you have been praying for financial stability, others for emotional healing, some for reconciliation, others for direction. The reserved blessing may look different for each person, but the principle remains the same. It is tailored. God does not mass-produce destinies. He designs them individually. That is why comparison has been your distraction. You were measuring your timeline against someone else's assignment, but your reservation was being finalized behind closed doors. There are doors that only your obedience can unlock. This is not about worthiness. It is about willingness. The door exists. The key exists. But the turning of that key requires your yes. Heaven will not force what it has prepared. It invites participation. And sometimes the most powerful action you can take is a simple step of trust. When you move even slightly in alignment with instruction, you signal readiness. And readiness activates release. Hesitation is costly in moments like this, not because God is harsh, but because momentum matters. When a wave rises, you must move with it. If you pause too long, you miss the force that would have carried you forward. The reserved blessing carries momentum right now. The atmosphere is favorable. The alignment is precise. But doubt can interrupt flow. Fear can slow your response. And overthinking can weaken decisive obedience. Ask yourself honestly, what has God been nudging you to do? What conversation have you postponed? What application have you delayed? What step have you been analyzing instead of acting on? Often the reserved breakthrough sits on the other side of a simple act of courage. Not a dramatic leap, just a faithful step. God rarely reveals the entire staircase. He illuminates the next step. And when you take it, more light appears. You may feel unprepared. That is normal. Most divine assignments feel bigger than our comfort zone. But remember, if it was reserved for you, it means heaven measured your capacity. It means God factored in your growth. It means the preparation season you endured was not random, it was training. You were strengthened in private so you could stand confidently in public. There is also protection wrapped inside this reservation. Certain relationships had to shift. Certain distractions had to fall away. Certain habits had to be confronted. It felt uncomfortable. It felt isolating at times. But it was alignment. You cannot carry new wine in old containers. The reserved blessing required a refined version of you. And refinement always precedes release. Do not shrink back now. Do not second-guess what God has already confirmed in your spirit. The fact that this message reached you at this precise moment is not coincidence. It is coordination. heaven aligning circumstances so you would recognize the edge of your breakthrough. What was reserved only for you is closer than you think. It is not floating somewhere distant. It is positioned at the intersection of faith and obedience. When you step forward, it meets you. When you trust, it unfolds. When you align, it activates. This is your moment to claim what has been set aside, not with arrogance, not with fear, but with confident faith. If it has prepared it, the window is open. The reservation stands waiting. Every breakthrough is preceded by a test. Not because God wants to block you, but because He wants to build you. The moment before elevation often feels like pressure. The season before release often feels like resistance. And if you are honest, you have felt an unusual weight lately. Small battles have felt bigger. Minor inconveniences have felt magnified. Emotions have been stretched. Patience hath been tested. That is not random. That is the pattern that appears right before something shifts. When breakthrough approaches, resistance increases. It is like the final push before something is born. The pressure intensifies because the promise is close. The enemy does not panic over what is far away. He reacts to what is near. The opposition you are feeling is not proof of failure. It is evidence of proximity. You are closer than you think. And the test you are facing is not designed to destroy you, but to reveal whether you will stand firm at the edge of fulfillment. Tests often come disguised. They do not announce themselves. They show up as irritation, as delay, as misunderstanding, as temptation, and doubt. You may suddenly question everything you felt certain about. You may wonder if you misheard God. You may feel like retreating to what is familiar because it feels safer than stepping into something new. But comfort zones are rarely connected to destiny. The test is asking one simple question: will you trust what God said, even when the pressure rises? There is a spiritual battle around your promise. Not because the promise is fragile, but because it is valuable. What carries impact always attracts opposition. Think about the areas where you feel the most tension. That tension is often attached to your calling. The frustration may be pointing toward your assignment. The resistance may be guarding the doorway to your next level. And if you misinterpret the test as a stop sign instead of a strengthening process, you risk turning around right before arrival. Doubt and discernment can feel similar, but they are not the same. Discernment brings clarity. Doubt brings confusion. Discernment guides you forward carefully. Doubt pulls you backward fearfully. During this test, you must distinguish between the two. If something is leading you into deeper peace, even if it stretches you, that is likely discernment. But if something is pushing you to abandon what God confirmed, that is fear trying to disguise itself as wisdom. You may notice that certain old habits are resurfacing. Old thought patterns, old insecurities, old reactions. That is part of the test. Breakthrough requires a new mindset. And before God releases something greater, He exposes what could sabotage it. If impatience surfaces, it is being revealed so you can surrender it. If pride surfaces, it is being exposed so it does not damage what is coming. Tests refine character, and character sustains blessing. Another form of testing is delay. You expected things to move faster. You thought once you prayed, everything would shift immediately. But delay is not denial. Delay builds endurance. It separates emotional excitement from rooted faith. Anyone can believe when results are instant. But steady belief during silence, that is maturity. And maturity is necessary for stewardship. God is not only giving you a breakthrough, B is preparing you to maintain it. There may also be relational tests. People may misunderstand your focus. They may question your changes. They may not recognize the growth happening inside you. Do not be discouraged by this. Not everyone will understand your transition. Some only knew the previous version of you. And when you begin to shift, it unsettles those who were comfortable with your old patterns. But obedience sometimes requires standing alone for a moment. The key during the test is consistency. Continue praying. Continue believing. Continue acting in alignment. Do not let temporary discomfort cause permanent regret. You are being observed in the spirit. Not in a judgmental way, but in a developmental way. Heaven is watching how you respond to pressure. Will you complain or will you remain faithful? Will you retreat or will you press forward? The test before the breakthrough is proof that something significant is near. If nothing valuable was ahead, there would be no reason for the tension. The stretching you feel is expansion. The pressure you feel is preparation. The uncertainty you feel is growth unfolding. Do not interpret this season as a setback. It is a setup. The test is not your ending. It is your qualification. When you pass through this moment with faith intact, you step into what was reserved for you with strength, wisdom, and stability. You are not being punished. You are being positioned. And when this test concludes, you will look back and realize it was the final refinement before release. As you move through this critical season, you may be asking for confirmation. You may be saying quietly, God, if this is really you, show me. And what you must understand is that confirmation does not always arrive loudly. It often comes gently, slowly, in ways that require attention. The signs surrounding your breakthrough are not always dramatic, but they are deliberate. Heaven is confirming what it has already spoken, but it is doing so in a way that tests your sensitivity. One of the first silent confirmations is repetition. You may be noticing certain themes appearing again and again. The same message echoed through different sources. The same scripture surfacing in unrelated places. The same idea pressing on your heart from multiple angles. This is not coincidence. When heaven repeats something, it is reinforcing it. It is anchoring it deeper into your awareness. God knows that repetition builds confidence, and confidence strengthens obedience. You may also be experiencing unusual dreams or sudden clarity during quiet moments. Thoughts that feel wiser than your own reasoning. Insights that arrive without struggle. Solutions forming where confusion once lived. These are gentle confirmations. When God prepares to release something significant, He often increases revelation. He allows you to see differently, to think differently, to perceive beyond surface appearances. What once looked impossible begins to look manageable. What once felt overwhelming begins to feel structured. That shift is not random. It is preparation. Another confirmation is unexpected peace. Not because circumstances have fully changed, but because your spirit has. There may still be challenges around you, but inside you there is calm, a steady assurance, a quiet knowing that things are aligning. This peace does not come from evidence, it comes from alignment. It is the Spirit whispering, you are on track, and that peace becomes a compass. When you feel it, you are moving correctly. When it lifts, it is an invitation to pause and reevaluate. You may also notice certain relationships shifting subtly. Some people feel distant without conflict. Others appear at the exact moment you need encouragement. Conversations happen that feel strategically timed. Advice comes from unexpected places. Doors close that once seemed essential. Doors open that you never anticipated. These shifts are not chaotic. They are coordinated. When breakthrough approaches, alignment accelerates. People who are not part of your next season begin to drift naturally, and those assigned to your future step into proximity. Closed doors can be confirmation too. Sometimes rejection is redirection. What feels like loss may actually be protection. If something you were pursuing suddenly stopped progressing, consider the possibility that it was never meant to carry you forward. God will not allow you to step into something that compromises what He has reserved for you. The closure you experienced may have prevented confusion later, and while it hurt in the moment, it cleared space for something more precise. There is also an internal confirmation that is harder to describe. It is a knowing without visible proof, a steady belief that refuses to collapse. Even when doubts whisper, this knowing remains. It is not loud. It does not argue. It simply stands firm inside you. That is one of the strongest signs of alignment. When faith becomes anchored beyond emotion, breakthrough is near. Because now your belief is no longer dependent on circumstances. It is rooted in conviction. You may notice increased resistance alongside these confirmations. That does not cancel them. In fact, it often validates them. The enemy tries to cloud clarity when progress is unfolding. He attempts to magnify small problems so you will overlook larger promises. But if you look closely, you will see that every challenge is paired with reassurance. Every obstacle is accompanied by a sign. Heaven does not leave you without witness. It confirms while it prepares. Another subtle sign is a growing discomfort with where you currently are. Not dissatisfaction rooted in ingratitude, but awareness that you have outgrown a space. What once satisfied you now feels limiting. What once felt secure now feels restrictive. This is expansion. You are being stretched internally before you are elevated externally. When your capacity grows, your environment must eventually adjust. That discomfort is not confusion, it is transition. Pay attention to your intuition in this season. Pay attention to the ideas that will not leave your mind. Pay attention to the gentle nudges you keep ignoring. Confirmation rarely shouts. It whispers consistently. And the more you respond to those whispers, the clearer they become. The silent confirmation signs are evidence that heaven is not silent about your life. God is communicating. He is affirming. He is guiding. You are not walking blindly toward this breakthrough. You are being led step by step. And every sign you notice strengthens your confidence that what was reserved for you is no longer distant. It is unfolding. There are divine moments that repeat themselves in different forms, and then there are moments that stand alone. This is one that stands alone. When the Spirit says this message will not appear again, it is not about scarcity of content. It is about the uniqueness of timing. You can hear similar words in the future. You can encounter encouragement again. But this exact alignment of urgency, readiness, and spiritual positioning will not return in the same way. Time does not rewind in the Spirit. It advances. Throughout history, there have been one-time invitations that changed everything. A call that required immediate response. A door that opened briefly. An instruction that demanded trust. Those who moved stepped into destiny. Those who hesitated watched the moment pass. Not because God is cruel, but because growth requires movement. When heaven orchestrates a specific convergence of events, it does so with precision. And precision means there is a defined window. You must understand the principle of sensitivity. Spiritual sensitivity is the ability to recognize when a moment carries more weight than usual. Most days feel ordinary. Most decisions feel routine. But occasionally, something stirs differently. There is a gravity to it, A heightened awareness that this choice matters more. That is what makes this message distinct. It is not louder, it is heavier. It carries consequence. If this message were to repeat in the same way later, it would no longer be the same moment. Your circumstances will have shifted. The spiritual atmosphere will have adjusted. The opportunity connected to this specific timing will have either been activated or expired. That is why delay is dangerous. Not because you will lose God's love, but because you may lose a season of acceleration that was available now. There are times when people say, if it's meant for me, it will come back. But that mindset can lead to missed destiny. Some things are meant for you only if you respond. Free will plays a role in fulfillment. Heaven presence. You participate. And participation cannot be postponed indefinitely. The difference between stagnation and advancement is often a single obedient step taken at the right time. Why will this message not appear again? Because you will not be the same person tomorrow that you are today. Even a single decision changes trajectory. If you act now, your path adjusts. If you delay, your path adjusts differently. Either way, movement occurs. But only one direction aligns with the acceleration currently available. This is not about punishment. It is about momentum. Think about seasons in nature. There is a planting season and a harvest season. If a farmer misses the planting window, he cannot simply plant any time and expect the same yield. The soil condition, the weather pattern, the climate, all must align. When they do, action must follow. This message represents planting time for something that will produce breakthrough. But planting cannot be delayed without affecting harvest. There is also the principle of spiritual maturity. When God trusts you with a time-sensitive instruction, He is testing your readiness for greater responsibility. If every instruction had unlimited time, urgency would never develop. Discipline would never form. Focus would never sharpen. Urgency refines priority. It forces you to decide what truly matters. And right now, heaven is observing your response to this priority. Some people listening will feel the weight of this deeply. Others will brush it aside. That difference is not about intelligence, it is about sensitivity. The ones who perceive the weight will move. The ones who treat it casually may continue in cycles they were meant to exit. And the heartbreaking part is not that opportunity disappears forever, but that unnecessary delay extends struggle. This message will not appear again because this alignment is specific to this hour. The urgency of 11:55 p.m., the stirring in your spirit, the convergence of confirmation signs, all of it forms a singular moment. Tomorrow will carry its own grace, but today carries this one. And what you do with it shapes what tomorrow looks like. You are not being threatened. You are being invited. Invited into alertness. Invited into responsiveness. Invited into partnership with divine timing. The seriousness of this invitation reflects the value of what is attached to it. If nothing significant were at stake, there would be no urgency. So ask yourself honestly, will you treat this as ordinary, or will you recognize it as extraordinary? Will you postpone reflection, or will you lean in with intention? The message will not appear again in this form because this is a now moment. And now moments define seasons. Heaven has aligned circumstances. The window remains open, but not indefinitely. The decision rests with you, and your response determines whether this becomes a mist whisper or a marked turning point in your life. You have heard the warning. You have sensed the urgency. You have recognized the signs. Now comes the final instruction before midnight. This is not complicated, but it is crucial. When heaven prepares to release what was reserved for you, It gives clear direction. And the direction in this hour is alignment. Align your thoughts. Align your words. Align your actions. Because what you do in these final moments before 11:55 p.m. sets the tone for what unfolds next. First, align your thoughts. Fear has been whispering scenarios that contradict what God has spoken. Doubt has tried to replay past disappointments as evidence of future failure. But you must interrupt that pattern now. What you repeatedly think begins to shape what you expect. And what you expect influences how you act. Replace the question, what if it fails, with the declaration, heaven has already answered. You are not preparing for defeat. You are preparing for manifestation. Second, align your words. There is power in what you speak during transition. Words are not empty sounds. They are spiritual seeds. In moments of breakthrough, careless speech can weaken confidence. Complaining can dilute expectation. Negative declarations can create hesitation. Guard your mouth in these hours. Speak life over your situation. Declare gratitude before you see results. Thank God for movement before you witness evidence. Gratitude positions you as someone ready to receive. Third, align your actions. What has God already shown you to do? Perhaps it is reaching out to someone. Perhaps it is submitting that application. Perhaps it is organizing what you will need for the opportunity you have been praying about. Faith is not passive and prepares. If you believe the door is opening, stand near it. If you believe the answer is coming, clear space for it. Action demonstrates expectation. Distraction must be cut off intentionally. In moments like this, unnecessary noise becomes more tempting. And the scrolling, random conversations, outfilled discussions. Protect your atmosphere. Create stillness. Even a few minutes of quiet reflection can sharpen your sensitivity. You are not isolating out of fear. You are focusing out of wisdom. Midnight represents transition, and transition requires attention. There is also a deeper instruction. Release what no longer belongs in your next season. Bitterness cannot cross into breakthrough. Unforgiveness cannot sustain elevation. Old grudges weigh down new opportunities. Before midnight, examine your heart. If there is someone you need to forgive, choose freedom. If there is resentment you have been nurturing, surrender it. You do not want to carry yesterday's wounds into tomorrow's promise. You may feel a mixture of anticipation and nervousness. That is normal. Transition often feels like standing at the edge of something unfamiliar. But remember, what is ahead was reserved specifically for you. It matches your growth. It aligns with your preparation. It fits the version of you that emerged from testing. Trust that the one who prepared it also prepared you. In these final moments, posture matters. Sit with expectancy. Stand with confidence. Pray with clarity. You do not need dramatic rituals. You need sincere alignment. Whisper a simple prayer. God, I am ready. That readiness shifts atmosphere. It signals agreement. It declares participation. Here is something powerful about the minutes before midnight. They carry reflection and anticipation at the same time. Reflection on what has been. Anticipation for what is coming. Let gratitude fill your reflection. Let faith fuel your anticipation. Refuse to rehearse failure. Refuse to magnify delay. This is not the hour for retreat. This is the hour for resolve. And hear this clearly. The enemy will attempt one last distraction before breakthrough. A sudden doubt, a small conflict, an unexpected inconvenience. Do not overreact. Do not interpret it as cancellation. is often a final attempt to shake your focus. Stand steady. You are too close to step backward now. In just a moment, I will share a final activation that many overlook in transition seasons, one that seals alignment and protects momentum. You will be glad you stayed for what is about to be revealed. Before we move forward, seal this instruction with faith. Type "I am aligned" before midnight in the comments right now. Blessing code 892 is now activated. As you stand in this sacred alignment before midnight, I feel a stirring to speak directly to those who know this word is touching their spirit. When you sow into a moment like this, you are not giving to a channel. You are pouring oil into a lamp that guides thousands toward their breakthrough hour. The Lord says, "Cast your bread upon the waters, and it shall return to you." And this is not poetry. It is a living promise over your obedience. I am inviting you personally to become a partner in carrying this urgent light through super thanks, membership, or a PayPal seed through the link in the description or the QR code on your screen. Your generosity becomes a river, ensuring that someone else hears their warning before midnight strikes. Do not treat this as a casual donation. Treat it as prophetic participation in the harvest of souls. Move quickly as the Spirit nudges you, because delayed obedience can miss multiplied impact. As you give, may doors open before you that no one can shut, and may provision chase you down in unexpected ways. Step into this act of faith now and seal your alignment with action. Now it is time to activate the breakthrough. You have listened. You have reflected. You have aligned your thoughts, your words, and your actions. But activation requires one more thing: agreement. Breakthrough is not only about what heaven releases. It is about what you receive. And receiving is not passive. It is intentional. It is vocal. It is decisive. Activation begins with your voice. There is power in agreement. When you speak in harmony with what God has declared, you create spiritual alignment. Say it clearly. Even if your voice trembles, my breakthrough has been released. Not because you see it fully, but because you trust the one who promised it. Declaration shifts atmosphere. It reinforces faith. It silences internal contradiction. You cannot speak defeat and expect victory to feel natural. Choose language that reflects expectation. Gratitude is another key to activation. Thank God before the evidence appears. This may feel unnatural, but it is deeply spiritual. Gratitude signals trust. It says, "I believe you have already moved." When you thank God in advance, you step into a posture of confidence. Complaints close doors. Gratitude opens them wider. Tonight, let thanksgiving rise louder than fear. Activation also requires practical obedience. What step have you been postponing? What action have you delayed because you wanted more confirmation? You have received confirmation. Now move. If there is a call to make it. If there is preparation to complete it. If there is a plan to outline, write it down. Faith without movement becomes frustration. Faith with action becomes momentum. You must also activate community. Breakthrough was never designed to be carried alone. Agreement multiplies strength. When two or more align in faith, confidence increases. That is why I encourage you right now. Engage. Like this video as a public declaration that you are activating your breakthrough. Comment it as activated as a statement of agreement. Share this message with someone who had been standing at the edge of their own 11:55 p.m. moment. And if you have not yet subscribed, subscribe now and connect yourself to a community that stands in faith together. Engagement is not about numbers. It is about unity. Unity strengthens expectation. There is something powerful about declaring faith in the presence of others. It builds accountability. It anchors courage. When you type your declaration, you are not just interacting digitally. You are marking a moment spiritually. You are saying, I will not retreat. You are saying, I will not doubt what God has spoken. And that declaration seals your alignment. Activation also requires release. Release the timeline you created in your own mind. Release the method you expected God to use. Breakthrough may not look exactly as you imagined. It may arrive through an unexpected door. It may come disguised as responsibility instead of relief. Stay flexible. Stay open. Trust that heaven's version is better than your draft. There will be a moment soon when you recognize the shift. It may not be dramatic. It may begin quietly. A conversation that changes direction. An email that carries opportunity. A sense of clarity that replaces confusion. When that moment comes, do not hesitate. Move. That is activation in action. That is partnership with heaven. And remember this, activation is not a one-time declaration. It is a sustained posture. Continue speaking life tomorrow. Continue acting in faith next week. Continue guarding your thoughts next month. Breakthrough begins with a moment, but it is sustained by consistency. Do not treat this as emotional excitement. Treat it as covenant agreement. Some of you will feel immediate confirmation after this activation. Others may experience gradual unfolding. Do not compare timelines. Activation does not guarantee instant visibility. It guarantees alignment. And alignment inevitably produces movement. Right now, breathe deeply and recognize the significance of this moment. You are not the same person who first heard the warning. You have shifted. You have decided. You have agreed. That decision carries power. Your breakthrough is not theoretical. It is in motion. Heaven has answered. You have aligned. Now you have activated. The next part will reveal what happens if someone chooses delay instead of activation, and why that choice shapes entire seasons. Prepare your heart for the truth, because understanding it will protect what you have just set in motion. There is something many people do not want to talk about, the consequence of delay. Not because God is harsh, not because He withdraws His love, but because timing matters. When a divine window opens and a person hesitates, it does not mean destiny disappears forever. It means momentum shifts, and momentum is powerful. Delay often feels harmless in the beginning. It whispers, you have time. It suggests, you can respond tomorrow. It convinces you that urgency is exaggeration. But what delay rarely reveals is what it costs. When you postpone obedience, you postpone acceleration. When you ignore a prompting, you slow alignment. The breakthrough may still exist, but the pathway becomes longer, heavier, more complicated than it needed to be. Think about how many seasons in your life stretched longer than expected because you hesitated. Opportunities that required boldness but were met with overthinking. Decisions that needed courage but were postponed out of fear. Delay rarely announces itself as disobedience. It disguises itself as caution, as logic, as waiting for the right time. But sometimes the right time is the moment you feel the nudge. Spiritual stagnation does not happen overnight. It happens gradually. A small hesitation here, a small compromise there, a quiet ignoring of conviction. Over time, sensitivity dulls. What once stirred you deeply begins to feel optional. What once felt urgent begins to feel negotiable. And before you realize it, the fire that once burned brightly feels reduced to embers. Delay affects more than circumstances, it affects confidence. When you repeatedly postpone obedience, you begin to question your own discernment. You wonder whether you truly hear from God. You lose trust in your spiritual instincts. That internal hesitation becomes a cycle, and cycles are difficult to break once they settle in. There is also a weight that comes with delayed obedience, a subtle regret, a quiet awareness that you missed a moment. It lingers in the background. It shows up in reflections late at night, not as condemnation, but as awareness. Awareness that you sensed something significant and did not respond. That feeling is heavier than the fear you were trying to avoid. But here is the truth. Delay is not your destiny. It is a decision. And decisions can change. Even now, if you recognize patterns of hesitation in your life, this is your opportunity to break them. Understanding the consequence of delay is not meant to shame you. It is meant to sharpen you. It is meant to wake you up before another window closes unnecessarily. There are biblical examples of hesitation that extended seasons. Journeys that could have been shorter became longer because of doubt. Promises that could have been entered quickly required wandering instead. Not because God changed his mind, but because people delayed their movement. Delay rarely cancels promise, but it often complicates the process. You must decide what kind of story you want to tell later. Do you want to say, "I sensed it and move in where I sensed it and waited"? Those two responses lead to different experiences. One leads to growth through obedience. The other leads to growth through regret. Both teach lessons, but one is lighter. The consequence of delay is not only about lost opportunity. It is about missed momentum. When heaven aligns circumstances, energy flows, support appears, resources connect, clarity increases. But when you hesitate, that alignment begins to disperse. It does not disappear instantly, but it loses intensity. What once felt like a wave becomes a ripple. You are being shown this not to create fear, but to create focus. There is still time within this window. There is still grace covering this moment. But grace does not eliminate responsibility. It empowers it. You are responsible for your response. You are accountable for your alignment. If you feel conviction rising, that is not condemnation. That is invitation. Invitation to choose differently now. Invitation to respond instead of retreat. Invitation to protect the activation you declared. The breakthrough you prayed for deserves more than hesitation. It deserves courage. It deserves decisiveness. It deserves faith that moves instead of stall. Do not let overthinking rob you of acceleration. Do not let comfort rob you of calling. This is your moment to choose movement over delay. To choose obedience over analysis. To choose faith over fear. The consequence of delay is real, but so is the reward of immediate response. And what happens when you choose obedience without hesitation? That is what we will step into next, because heaven always confirms alignment with peace and favor. When obedience is chosen without hesitation, something shifts immediately in the unseen realm. You may not hear thunder. You may not see visible signs at first. But heaven responds. Alignment creates confirmation. And confirmation brings peace that cannot be manufactured by circumstances. This is what happens after you say yes without delay. The first confirmation is internal. It is a deep, steady peace that replaces inner conflict. The anxiety that once circled your thoughts begins to quiet down. The overthinking loses its grip. Even if your external situation has not fully changed, your internal atmosphere has. That is not imagination. That is alignment. Peace is often the first reward of obedience. It is heaven's way of saying, you stepped correctly. You will notice that clarity increases. Decisions that once felt complicated begin to simplify. You no longer feel torn between options. The fog lifts. Direction feels straighter. This clarity is not coincidence. It is confirmation. When you move in obedience, confusion loses authority. Light follows alignment, and with light comes understanding. Another sign of confirmation is unexpected favor. Conversations begin to flow differently. Doors that felt stuck begin to loosen. People respond with openness instead of resistance. You may receive support from places you did not anticipate. This is acceleration. Not dramatic at first, but undeniable over time. When you partner with heaven, circumstances begin to adjust around your obedience. You will also feel strength rising in areas where you once felt weak. The same challenge that intimidated you before will not feel as overwhelming. Courage grows quietly. Confidence stabilizes. This is because obedience builds spiritual muscle. Every time you act in faith, your capacity expands. You become more resilient, more decisive, more grounded. There may even be moments of joy that surprise you. Not because everything is perfect, but because you sense movement. Joy is often a signal that breakthrough is unfolding. It does not depend on final results. It celebrates forward motion, and that joy becomes fuel. It reminds you that you did not imagine the calling. You did not mishear the instruction. You moved correctly. Heaven's confirmation also comes through protection. Situations that could have become complicated dissolve quickly. Misunderstandings resolve without escalation. Delays that could have turned into setbacks are redirected smoothly. When you walk in obedience, there is covering over your steps. It does not mean challenges disappear completely. It means they lose the power to derail you. Sometimes confirmation arrives through testimony. You may hear someone else share a story that mirrors your experience. You may receive encouragement that speaks directly into your situation. You may witness proof that God is moving in ways you cannot deny. These moments strengthen your confidence that you are not alone in this journey. It is important to remember that confirmation does not always mean instant completion. The breakthrough may unfold in stages, but each stage will carry evidence of progress. Small victories, subtle shifts, incremental change. Do not despise these beginnings. They are seeds of larger manifestation, and seeds, when nurtured, grow steadily. After obedience, there is also increased sensitivity. You become more attuned to divine prompting. You recognize guidance more quickly. What once required heavy discernment now feels natural. This is growth. The more you respond correctly, the sharper your spiritual instincts become. There is something powerful about realizing that your decision mattered, that your choice to move instead of delay created tangible impact. That realization builds faith for future moments. The next time urgency arises, you will not hesitate as long. You will remember what confirmation felt like. You will remember the peace that followed your yes. You may look back soon and see how precisely everything aligned, how the timing made sense, how the preparation connected to the opportunity. And you will understand that heaven was not late. It was exact. Your obedience synchronized you with that exactness. Heaven's confirmation after obedience is not loud, but it is unmistakable. It whispers assurance. It strengthens conviction. It reinforces direction. And it prepares you for greater trust ahead. What you activated through faith is now unfolding through alignment. And as it unfolds, you will see evidence that your response in that critical hour shaped the season ahead. The final part will seal this message with assurance, blessing, and a prophetic declaration over your life. Prepare your heart to receive it fully. You prayed for a breakthrough, and heaven has answered. That was not poetry. That was not motivation. That was a declaration. From the very beginning of this message, the urgency was clear. The window was real. The timing carried weight. And now, as we come to this final moment, you must understand something deeply. This was never about pressure. It was about positioning. You were not warned to frighten you. You were awakened to prepare you. The 11:55 p.m. moment symbolized transition. The narrow space between what was and what is about to be. And whether the shift feels dramatic or gradual in your life, the truth remains. You are not where you were when this message began. Something inside you moved. Something aligned. Something activated. You have seen the pattern. The prayer that moved heaven. The window that required attention. The reservation with your name on it. The test before the breakthrough. The silent confirmations. A warning about delay. The peace that follows obedience. Every part of this journey pointed to one reality. God has not forgotten you. He has not ignored your tears. He has not dismissed your requests. Heaven responded the moment you prayed, and everything since then hath been preparation for manifestation. You are stepping into a new awareness now, an awareness that timing matters, that obedience accelerates, that hesitation complicates, that alignment unlocks. These are not just lessons for this moment. They are principles for your future. The same sensitivity you developed here will guide you in the next season. The same courage you exercised here will carry you through future transitions. Do not return to small thinking after this. Do not shrink back into doubt after this. What you felt stirring in your spirit was not imagination. It was confirmation. What you sensed shifting was not emotion. It was alignment. And what you activated was not temporary enthusiasm. It was partnership with divine timing. Even if the full breakthrough is still unfolding in stages, trust the process. Seeds do not grow overnight, but they do grow. Movement may begin quietly, but quiet movement is still progress. And sometimes the greatest miracles are the ones that unfold steadily rather than suddenly. If fear tries to whisper tomorrow, remind it of today. If doubt tries to resurface next week, remind it of the peace you felt after obedience. Anchor yourself in what you experienced. Let it become evidence in future moments of uncertainty. You are building a history of trust with God, and that history will sustain you. You are not alone in this journey. You are not overlooked. You are not forgotten. The breakthrough you prayed for was heard, answered, and set in motion. Continue walking in expectation. Continue speaking life. Continue aligning your actions with faith. This is not the end of something. It is the beginning of a new chapter. Now I want you to seal this entire message with faith. Type "My breakthrough is sealed" in the comments as a declaration over your life. Blessing code 1046 is now activated. I declare over you that doors will open in proper timing. I declare that confusion will not dominate your decisions. I declare that fear will not paralyze your progress. I declare that peace will guard your mind as you step forward. What was reserved for you will not be lost. What was prepared for you will not be stolen. What was spoken over you will not return empty. Lift your head with confidence. Walk forward with clarity. Heaven has answered, and you responded. As this message seals your breakthrough, I must speak one final prophetic invitation to those who feel the fire of this word. When you sow into this mission, you are not supporting a channel. you are releasing rivers of living water to reach souls standing at their own 11:55 p.m. moment. The Lord declares, as long as the earth remains, seed time and harvest shall not cease, and that promise breathes over your obedience right now. I am calling you to act, not later, but now, through super thanks, membership, or a PayPal seed through the link in the description or the QR code on your screen. Your giving becomes light in someone else's midnight, oil that keeps this prophetic flame burning across nations. Do not treat this as generosity alone. Treat it as covenant participation in a harvest God is gathering urgently. Move swiftly as the Spirit leads you, because obedience in this hour carries multiplied reward. As you sow, may heaven pour back into your life, pressed down, shaken together, and overflowing with favor. Step forward and seal this word with action. This is your moment. Walk in it.